STA1, really? Atari ST Buggy Boy, one of the best Atari ST arcade ports. Buggy Boy, known as Speed Buggy in North America, is an off-road racing game developed by Tsunami and released for the arcades in 1985. The object of the game is to drive around one of the 5 courses, off-road, north, east, south, and west, in the shortest time possible. Each course has 5 legs filled with obstacles such as boulders, brick walls, maybe even soccer balls. Points are awarded for driving through gates and collecting flags. Off-road is the only closed circuit course that takes 5 laps to complete, while north, south, east, and west are each strictly point-to-point racing. While racing, the player can hit logs and tree stumps in order to jump the buggy over obstacles, gaining extra points while airborne. In fact, in some places, you have to hit the logs and jump or you'll crash. Extra points are rewarded for driving the buggy on 2 wheels. The home ports in the UK were licensed to Elite for 1987 releases on the C64 and Amstrad, as well as 1988 releases for the ST, Amiga, and Spectrum. The ST version was completed by the duo of Mathew Ward and Jason Brooke, Mathew on code and graphics, and Jason on music and sound. Mathew's other ST credits include the Ghost and Goblins port, the Live and Let Die Bond film license, as well as Sega's World Championship Soccer port. Jason's music and sound ST credits include 1943, Flying Shark, Akari Warriors, and Outrun, among others. In late 1988, I purchased Buggy Boy based on the ST Action STA1 badged review from a few months earlier. It was yet another of those early UK ST games that proved to us we had picked a pretty damn good gaming platform as well as multi-purpose computer in the Atari ST. Technically, all of the ports are of the game Buggy Boy Jr., or Speed Buggy Jr. as known in the USA. This is the single-screen stand-up version of Buggy Boy. Buggy Boy was the sit-down arcade cockpit version with 3 separate screens wide. All of these ports and Buggy Boy Jr. show the middle of the 3 screens, with possibly some additional graphics in the ports to show the extra stuff on the side of the screens. Recently, I played the junior version of the arcade machine on my CoinOps Enhanced At Games Ultimate. This is really fun. The spinner is an incredible version of a steering wheel. So, how does it compare to the Atari ST version? Well, they're both fast, fun arcade racing games, the likes of which at the time had yet to be experienced at home in any form as good as this. The ST version is slightly slower than the arcade, but just as thrilling and fun. Having never played the arcade version though in 1988 when I first tried the ST port, I had nothing to compare it to. But it was so well done that I spent hours and hours trying to get to the end of each course. Luckily, you can choose to play any of the 5 courses and do not need to finish one to test the others. They get progressively more difficult, but are all a blast to play. Taking the reins today, I had the pleasure to play in emulation, which means I can use my Xbox controller and assign the accelerate button to a second button and not have to press up to accelerate, which always made turning difficult for me with a standard joystick on the Atari ST. This game is a clear winner on the ST for me and fits in the top 10% of its library. It received an 83% review and an STA1 badge from ST Action magazine. Those STA1 ratings always seemed to be a little wonky back then, so in this series we're going to look back at the ST Action reviews and evaluate whether or not games got a fair shake or were given too much leeway in these classic reviews. I always liked ST Action magazine, but also felt there was something off about it, like it was out of time or out of place, or possibly the reviewers would rather be working on Mega Drive Action, I don't actually know if that magazine existed, or Amiga Action. While I feel like this was one of the top games for the ST at the time in 1988, and the STA1 badge kind of signifies it, the comments and scores in the review don't really add up. First of all, 83% for an STA1? Shouldn't it be greater than 85% for this badge? Also, of the 3 reviewers, only one of them really liked the game. The reviewer with the initials SM said that he couldn't help but recommend it, which I wholeheartedly agree with. But the comments from the reviewer with the initials NC saying it had basic graphics and sound are strange. The graphics are very nice and the sound is better than 99% of other ST games from the time. This all leads me to believe that NC might have been an Amiga Action reviewer, but I have no way of actually knowing. The main reviewer didn't give an opinion, just described the game pretty well, but the scores 77% for graphics, 63% for sound, 75% for originality, and 86% for addictiveness, which is probably the most accurate score, don't really add up to 83%. Now, I'm pretty sure they didn't just average the scores to come up with the final score, but based on those numbers, it's well below 80% and not really an STA1 badged material. So, this is what I think happened. This is the issue that I highlighted in an earlier video, where they went through about 10 early racing games on the ST that had been released before the magazine started publishing, and none of them were as good as Buggy Boy. So my theory is this: they were new to the ST and possibly game reviewing in general. At least 2 of the 3 reviewers wanted it to be harsh, maybe to show that they knew what they were doing. But one of them was realistic and knew both the ST library and how this game did very well to showcase the machine's capabilities. I think they initially completed this review and gave it 80% or lower, but then they saw the racing game feature and noticed that really only one of those games were anywhere near as good as Buggy Boy. So they upped its score and gave it an STA1 rating at the last minute before the magazine went out the door to the publisher. Of course, I have no idea if any of this is true, but I do know that Buggy Boy on the ST kicks butt and deserves the STA1 ranking.
We were children of the Silicon Revolution, an X generation conscripted to fight the console and home computer wars. A product of an analog 70s childhood, we came of digital age in the 80s, believing we could affect the world 8 bits at a time. Armed with joysticks, full-stroke keyboards, Jolt Cola, and MTV haircuts, we proceeded into the vertical blank. There, we stayed up late at night, devising incantations from D&D rulebooks and beginner's all-purpose symbolic instruction code. Video games were the match, and programming was the fuse, as the infinite possibilities of the digital world exploded into the internet age to come. We are Generation Atari.
into the vertical blank.